Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Journal. In this episode, I take a killer hike into the more remote, isolated, unforgiving, God-forsaken spots in San Diego County, to a place with an equally ominous sounding name, Hellhole Canyon. My plan was to drive out to the Hellhole Canyon Wilderness Preserve and climb to the top of Paradise Mountain, a tough round-trip day hike of over 8 miles. Sounds easy enough, doesn't it? In the northern part of San Diego County, the Hellhole Canyon County Preserve is a large open space of land nestled below Palomar Mountain near the small town of Valley Center, California, the heart of Indian country, and I'll get to that in a minute. The preserve offers over 2,000 acres of open space, over 13 miles of hiking trails, an equestrian-friendly staging area, and group camps and an amphitheater. The preserve was created in part because of the unique topography of the canyon. Palomar Mountain is one of San Diego's wettest areas. Palomar gets as much rain during the year as the northern Central Sierra Range. Because of this, the mountain naturally attracts a significant amount of wildlife that has been using this canyon to move across parts of the country for decades. In the heart of Hellhole Canyon runs Hell's Creek, which flows sporadically through the winter months with heavy rainfall. The creek bed takes quite a bit of rain to get it going though, but if it does, there's an adjacent creek that can have a waterfall. The canyon offers a riparian landscape with about the only trees throughout the preserve, and I can vouch for that. Rising above Hellhole Canyon are loop trails that ascend to the top of the park. The park's highest point is Paradise Mountain, which tops out at 3,261 feet, followed by a shorter Rodriguez Peak. This is where it gets a little confusing. Looking at the range from the top near the trailhead, you see basically two peaks, a saddleback-looking kind of hump rising above the valley. Off to the far right is a taller, much rockier peak that stands alone to the south. According to the official USGS topographic map, Rodriguez Mountain is the one off to the far right with a benchmark of 3,886 feet, clearly the tallest peak in the region. Looking at the two humps directly in front of you, the one on the left is somewhat lower in elevation, according to my calculations, and is unnamed but marked with a benchmark of 3,127 feet. Just off to the right of that is the second summit, the one that you reach first on your climb up to Paradise Mountain. It's not only unmarked on the map, it doesn't have a benchmark or elevation notation, but is taller than the one on the left, and having stood there myself and looked off the top, it's definitely taller than the one everyone calls Paradise Mountain. Now, I took a photo of my GPS showing an elevation of 3,188 feet, clearly 61 feet taller than Paradise Mountain. To make matters worse, the benchmark on top Paradise Mountain has a stamp RM. Well, so what does that mean? Is that Rodriguez Mountain? And if that isn't enough, the trail coming down from the second peak, the one I'm going to call Paradise Mountain for the sake of argument, is named the Rodriguez Peak Trail. Okay, somebody's fucking with me now. No wonder I got lost. Anyway, in this video I refer to the second peak, the one on the left, as Rodriguez Mountain, even though I know it's not really Rodriguez Mountain because that's in a whole other range off to the right. And the tallest one that I climbed, the first one, as Paradise Mountain. Whew, well, at least I got that off my chest. Let's continue. From the top of Paradise Mountain, there's a promise of phenomenal views of Palomar Mountain. Yep. Northern San Diego County? Yep. And the infamous Escondido Canal? Check. The canal was constructed in the 1800s, by the way, and runs through the southern end of Hellhole Canyon. The canal still provides water from the San Luis Rey River south to Lake Wolford and Escondido. On a clear day, views of San Clemente Island off the coast can be seen, as well as some of the other San Gabriel Mountains in Los Angeles, like Mount Baldy. The park has hiking trails for all different levels of hikers. Hellhole Canyon is only open on the weekends, Friday through Monday. It opens at 8 a.m. to sunset. It's so freaking hot here, they shut down the whole damn place during the month of August. According to my favorite hiking app, All Trails, the Paradise Mountain Loop is an 8.2-mile, moderately traffic loop located near Palma Valley, California, that features a river and is rated as difficult. The trail is primarily used for hiking and is accessible year-round. Well, except August. Dogs are also able to use this trail, but they must be kept on a leash. Okay, while dogs are allowed on a leash, I really don't recommend that one. It's extremely rocky, steep, hot, exposed and full of rattlesnakes and ticks. That'd just be cruel. Unless, of course, you just stick to the flatter, shadier creekside trail. Then I guess that'd be okay in the cooler months. According to the driving directions I got off Google Maps, it's a 31-mile drive from my house in Temecula to the trailhead in Valley Center. But looking at the driving time, they predicted a whopping 49 minutes. It's really not that far, but for the most part, the highway travels along a two-lane road and winds around and around through damn near every reservation in San Diego County. I'm not kidding. San Diego County has the largest concentration of Native American tribes of any county in the United States, a whopping 18, most of which that now have casinos and that help them bring prosperity and independence. That's a good thing for them, I guess. I drove through the Pechanga, Pala, La Jolla, Palma, Rincon, and San Pasqual Indian reservations, all on my way to the trailhead. Remember that in case you feel the need to get some cheap gas or steak and eggs for $7.99 on the way home. After getting a little turned around after following my voice-guided driving directions that are sketchy at best up here, I arrived here at the trailhead just as the gates opened at 8 a.m. A rare late winter storm was supposed to blow in tonight, so I was looking forward to hiking in some cool, cloudy conditions, especially in a place called Hellhole Canyon. There were only a few cars in the wide gravel parking lot when I threw on my kilt and started steeply down the trail into the bowels of hell. Well, good morning. It's a Monday morning, and I'm at Hellhole Canyon. I'm going to be starting up the trail to the top of Paradise Mountain. And it's supposed to be raining tomorrow. A really good chance of rain, so I had to go out and do this hike before the rain came. And of course, this location, this preserve, is only open on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So there weren't too many options. There's a few cars at the trailhead. There's a few people out hiking ahead of me, and a whole bunch of cars just pulled in. So I've got to get going down the trail here. It looks like this is going to be somewhat of an interpretive trail to start. There are some really nice homes in the adjacent foothills around here. Some just gigantic homes. But you can see where I'm going today. Paradise Mountain is behind me over there. So going to be heading down into the valley, and let's see what we can find today. Well, I've just gone 50 yards down the trail, came across this nice little monument. Actually has a topographic relief map in 3D as a plaque. It's actually kind of nice. As we head down into Hellhole Canyon. I just heard a turkey gobble somewhere. It could have been off in one of the privately owned parcels to the right of me, but you can see the trail down there as it works its way down into the creek bottom, and then eventually it'll work its way up to the top of Paradise Mountain, which is our destination for today. You know, as we're working our way down into the canyon here, first of all, it's a pretty steep descent, which means if we have to come back this way, that's going to suck. But hopefully it'll be cloudy this afternoon, and we might even get a drizzle or two, who knows. It's supposed to come in later this afternoon, so we'll see. This hike we're doing today is about 8 miles. You know, there's several trails here in the preserve. And the one we're doing today, the one we're tackling today, is called the Paradise Mountain Loop. Paradise Mountain is right behind me. We're going to do the full Monty here today. We're going to do the full 8 miles. So we're going to be heading up eventually counterclockwise, which is supposedly the easier route of the two, a little less steep in the beginning. So we're going to try that one and see how it works. Daytime high is only going to be in the low 50s today. That's going to be perfect for hiking in a place called Hellhole Canyon, don't you think? looks like I finally crossed the creek, reached the bottom, and I think pretty much from here on up it's going to be uphill toward the top of Paradise Mountain. You know, it's nice to see water flowing down in this creek. I was going to go down there and get some pictures of the little stagnant pond down there, but then I did notice the poison oak growing right here along the edge of the trail. So I think maybe I'll skip that one, save myself a little hassle later. You know, since we are down here along the stream, this is what I referred to in the last episode as the riparian environment. And because of the access to water, besides rattlesnakes that are up here, there's a chance we could run into something else. Maybe a California king snake, or maybe a rosy boa. Who knows, maybe a southern Pacific rattlesnake could be down here. There could be garter snakes and all kinds of creatures down here that have access to this water. Deer like to come down here out of the sagebrush up to higher elevations, and they come down here to the creek to get some water, and then they go back up to the higher elevation slopes for bedding down for the day. So we have to look for deer prints and prints of other animals while we're up here in the trail today. Well, it looks like we've come out of the stream side part of the trail, and now we're going to start experiencing some of the more open and exposed sagebrush slope parts of the trail as we work our way up to Paradise Mountain. You know, the one good thing about this being a preserve is most of the preserves are funded pretty well, and they have great interpretive signs. It tells you about what type of plants live in this environment, and in this case, what the birds of prey are that frequent the preserve. So maybe we'll get lucky and see one. Okay, well, it looks like I've come to a trail junction. This says Horse Thief Trail. So according to the map, it looks like the Horse Thief Trail is going to veer off to the right and connect us up with Paradise Mountain Trail, which is what we want. So, and we did want to go counterclockwise up to the top of Paradise Mountain. All right, well, I went literally 100 feet down the Horse Thief Trail, and then there was another spur. It looks like this is the Paradise Mountain Trail. You know, I did tell you that I was a little nervous because heading down from the trailhead, it was just the one trail coming down this direction, and I got to the split. It said Horse Thief to the right. Didn't really say what it was to the left. I imagine it's a continuation of the Hell Creek Trail. So I made the right onto the Horse Thief Trail, went literally 100 feet, and I came to this, another trail junction. This is the Paradise Mountain Trail, which is the counterclockwise loop, which is what I wanted to take today. So this should be taking me counterclockwise up to the top of Paradise Mountain, up to the summit, and back around through Rodriguez Mountain, and then back down here to I imagine the Hell Creek Trail, which I'll take back up to the staging area where the cars parked at the entrance to the Hellhole Canyon Preserve. So anyway, this is where the climbing starts. You know, I've noticed on this trail, most of it is decomposed granite, but there is some significant stretches where the terrain changes and The trail goes from a sandy color to a more of a deep red consistency, and I noticed there's some pretty deep footprints, which leads me to believe there's a lot of clay in the soil here. And I imagine during heavy rain periods, which is probably not a lot here in Hellhole Canyon, I imagine this trail probably gets pretty muddy and slippery. So, and it looks like, just based on the footprints I've seen just in this last 100 feet or so, that this could be a little bit of a treacherous hike probably when it's wet. So I don't think I'm going to have any problem today. I don't think that storm's going to come in until later, but it's just something to consider if you're coming up here right after the rain. You're going to need good traction. You're going to need some good tread on your shoes, and maybe even trekking poles to help you out. Anyway, got to keep going. The mountain's pretty far away from here. Whew. A little short stretch there has me winded a little bit. And in this trail, you'll see these pieces of timber laid crossways along the trail. Those aren't steps for your convenience. Those are actually water bars meant to divert runoff down the trail and to help prevent erosion. You can see the erosion down below where the water rifles down through after a heavy rain. Those water bars are meant to divert the channel of water. Instead of down the main part of the trail, they're supposed to divert it. You see they're at an angle, and that's for a reason. Those are put in place by volunteers or members of the California Conservation Corps. They come up here and do God's work, that's what I call it, because they have to haul pickaxes and shovels and chainsaws and large loper clippers and, you know, enough to get by for the day. There's normal supplies, and they wear heavy boots and helmets and long pants, and they get in here and they whack this debris and brush back for hikers like us. They can come up here and enjoy these trails. And that's a lot of hard work, because you figure that timber didn't come from the side of the trail. They had to lug that up here. So somebody had that on their back, across their shoulders, or they brought it up by mule, or they dropped it in by helicopter or whatever, and they cut it to length and buried it into the trail right there. And not only did they bury it into the trail, they put long bolts in place. They had to hammer down, probably with a sledgehammer. And of course that means they had to also carry the sledgehammer. So when you cross over one of them water bars, think of the California Conservation Corps and those poor volunteers that did that for you. Give them a high five when you go by. You know, I said I was winded. If I would have went another 20 feet, there was a bench. So I guess this must be a common place where people take breaks, where everybody gets winded. So I guess I shouldn't feel bad. As I spin around, I'm looking to the west, I believe. And the trail head is on the other side of that first ridge over toward that building that's on top of the hill. It's not way up there, but it's that direction. We got a long way to go today as we're working our way up toward the top of Paradise Mountain. Now remember what I was just telling you about the erosion, the effects of erosion on a trail. I'm just 50 feet past those water bars, and you can see what erosion has done to the trail just right here in this one little area. This trail is a little more overgrown than I imagined. I thought being this is in a preserve would have been a little wider, but it's still passable. Well, it appears I've come to another trail junction. I came up this trail right here, and without even really knowing it, you know, I do see a sign here. It kind of is a map of the preserve. There was a trail marker down there, which is what I assumed was my trail, but turns out not to be the case, because it looks like where I'm at, I'm going to be going right, which is this direction, which makes sense. This is counterclockwise, but it would have been nice if that sign would have been a little more visible to me coming up the trail. It would be even nicer if it had markings on it, but it looks like that's where I'm headed. Okay, this is that same trail sign that was unmarked. If you're coming down the Paradise Mountain Trail, you will see markings on this side that says left to staging, which would take you down the trail right there, which is where I came from. So I guess if you're coming down this direction, you don't have to worry, but coming up, you just got to pay attention. You know, I mentioned it earlier how kind of overgrown this trail has become. What you do have to be alert to on trails that have narrow pathways like this is not only ticks, but rattlesnakes as well. Because if they decide they want to hole up under a bush and wait for an unsuspecting rabbit, squirrel, or mice to come by, if you're wearing earbuds, you might not hear the rattle. So make sure you make enough noise, make sure your ears aren't covered. Pay attention. Sometimes rattlesnake rattling sounds like bees. So you got to keep your guard up. Don't cover your ears. You got to be alert out there. Whew, working up quite a sweat now. There's just a very slight perceptible breeze here as I'm working my way up the southern slope of Paradise Mountain. The mountain is getting closer. I still have a long way to go, but this is a very steep section right here. And I just got to pace myself, take some time to get up here. So I'm going to burn myself out today. Still recovering from that long 15-mile monster hike up Dripping Springs Trail. You know, I read that there was roughly 1,800 feet of ascent on this trail to the top of Paradise Mountain. And I wonder if that starts at the bottom of the creek and it's 1,800 feet, or is it 1,800 feet from the starting point, which was at least 500-600 feet above the creek, which means that 500 feet to the creek that I descended and then I regained is all for naught. And now it's another 1,800 feet. I hope not, because it's pretty steep. I'm hanging in there. Hopefully the higher up I get, the more breeze I'll get and I'll cool off a little bit, because right now I'm getting hot. You know, out here on this front range of Paradise Mountain, looking to the southwest, there's several homes tucked in the hillsides down here. My guess is probably just outside the preserve boundaries. And some of them are pretty large. This one either has a horse area. At first I thought it was a helipad, but looks like it might just be a horse training area. But needless to say, there are some homes spread out, and of course just above the preserve are quite a few homes, housing tracts up there. This is not too far from downtown Escondido, and you're probably only 30-45 minutes from downtown San Diego right here. You know, you might be thinking to yourself, how hot does it get here in the Hellhole Canyon Preserve? Well, I thought about that myself before I came out here today. And I know in this area of inland San Diego, easily reaches triple digits. In fact, so much so that they closed the preserve down the entire month of August and September. And the reason they do that is because of the extreme heat that they get down here. They are blocked, for the most part, from the ocean breeze by the hills. And since it is down in a canyon, the heat just sits here and gets hotter and hotter and hotter. It's not unusual to have temperatures in excess of 115 degrees here in Hellhole Canyon. And I bet you on extreme days, 120, 121 isn't out of the realm of possibility. And to put that in perspective, the hottest place on the face of the earth ever recorded was at Furnace Creek in Death Valley in the 1920s or 1930s. It was 134 degrees. And in fact, if you've ever been to Vegas in the old days and drove by the old giant thermometer, the big neon sign in Bun Boy, which is closed now, it's 134 feet tall. And that signifies the 134 degree temperature that they achieved in the 1930s. And just last summer at Furnace Creek, they hit a whopping 130 degrees. So when you think hot, you think Death Valley. You think, oh, 120, 125 degrees in Death Valley. You know what? It gets that here. And for the sake of the hikers and the general public, that's why they close this preserve down in the month of August and September. I would too. I wouldn't be up here. Remember what I said just a few minutes ago about the private residences? This makes a little bit of sense here now. I've come across private property boundary, which would explain why private residences are allowed so close to the preserve. So it looks like we're going to skirt the edge of the private property boundary as we work our way up the shoulder and our eventual climb up to the top of Paradise Mountain. I read that there were two different ways to get to the top of Paradise Mountain. One was to go counterclockwise up the Paradise Mountain Loop Trail, which is what I'm on now. And the other one is to come at it from a different angle. But supposedly this trail, the Paradise Mountain Trail, is the counterclockwise loop, and it's supposedly less steep. Well, if this is less steep, I don't want to see the steep version. This is pretty steep, and it hasn't had a whole lot of switchbacks. A lot of trails that have a lot of incline usually go a little farther because they built switchbacks into them to kind of ease the incline, spread out over longer distance. But this is like the first legitimate switchback I've seen, and at least up here I'm getting a little bit of a breeze. And now you can see what we've climbed, because there are those houses that were ahead of us a few minutes ago. Well, at this point, I've hiked over 3 miles up the Paradise Mountain Loop Trail to get to the spot I'm at right now. It's pretty steep. If this is the easier route, I sure don't want to see the other one. I'm over 3 miles. This hike is only 8. So I figured by 4 miles I'd be at the top, so I must be getting fairly close. Now, since the other trail is steeper, it's probably shorter, which means halfway point being 4 miles of an 8-mile loop might be a little over 4 to get to the top, because that's why it's steeper going up, because it's shorter going down. So maybe 4.5 going up, 3.5 going down. I don't know. Guess we'll find out. But I had to stop back there, and I had to take my energy gel and had to eat my little honey stinger little waffle thing for energy. I didn't eat enough this morning, and I can feel it. But I'm getting there. There's a little bit more of a breeze up here. Not a lot. I had to take off the gaiter because it was just too hot. And I was hoping I might even get a sprinkle up here. Looks like that's not going to happen. I do have a rain shell in the back of the pack. I was kind of hoping it'd rain. At this point, if it rained, I just like in the rain. Probably feel refreshing. I haven't seen anybody else since I made the turn, and nobody else since the guy that was ahead of me turned around and hiked back. So I imagine I'll probably be at the top here, and I'm hoping half an hour, maybe a little more. I'm just going to take my time. I have all day, you know. Whew, this must be the crux of the climb here, because this is straight up. At least there's a breeze. At least there's a breeze. Well, the trail has leveled out some, thank God, but it's a little overgrown in places. I was able to catch my breath, and it's definitely getting hot. This shirt doesn't quite breathe as well as I had hoped. And we do have a view over that mountain over there, the low level hill, which we didn't have before. And we also must be in a flight path from San Diego Airport because several jets have flown over the top. Helicopters, a Learjet, several big passenger airliners. And in fact, here comes another one. It looks like that's the top. Still have a ways to go. You know, they say this trail's rocky, and I didn't believe them, but you're not going to get much more rockier than that. I picked a good day to wear boots. 89 bottles of beer in the wall, 89 bottles of beer. Take one down, pass it around, 88 bottles of beer on the wall. Well, this is something interesting to take notice of on the trail. It appears that the trail goes that direction, but in retrospect, you'll notice the rocks laid across the trail when it appears the true trail goes up there. And you can see up toward the summit, you can see where our trail's going, that direction. Well, I noticed this in the trail. This appears to be a blast hole where maybe dynamite was placed, where they blew holes in the rocks to get them to break up into smaller pieces. That's where our trail's going right there. That's the top. We're almost there. Well, it looks like this is indeed a summit ridge, because if I spin off to the north and east, I have a view over the valley, and that down there, I believe, I don't know which casino that is. I don't know if that's Harrah's or Rincon. I don't really know. But it's our first view off the other side of the hilltop. And up along that edge is the Palomar Range. And in fact, I don't know if you can see it. I'll zoom in a little bit here. I believe that right there is Boucher Hill. Right there. At the top. Near Palomar State Park. But we're not going there. We're working our way around to the summit. And we're not that far from the top of Paradise Mountain here in the Hellhole Canyon Preserve. Well, just put this climb in perspective. Those houses that are down there in the distance, we were almost level with those when we started the hill. And you can see the cut in the brush as we worked our way up the trail, which you can clearly see from the upper elevations. You can't see it from down below, but up here you can. And we got to be nearing the top because there's not much more. It's got to be right up there. I guess we'll find out in a minute. Well, I believe I've reached the top. There's nothing higher than this up here on top of Paradise Mountain. I'm on a little granite boulder here on the very tip top. And everything from this boulder is downhill. So I'd imagine this would be it. I'll check the GPS just to make sure. I thought there'd be a summit register or an ammo can or a benchmark. Maybe there is. I'll have to hunt around for it while I take a break here. Well, I made it up to the top of Paradise Mountain here in the Hellhole Canyon Preserve. And it was quite the climb. It was 4.6 miles from the trailhead to this point right here. And I went along the counterclockwise route and worked my way up here to the top of the mountain. I haven't seen anybody else on the trail since I made the turn. And at least up here, there's a little bit of a breeze. I was pretty hot most of the way. And it feels good to be up here where there's a little bit of a breeze. Looks like I'm going to be along the ridge top as I work my way to the northwest, back around to the trailhead. There's a Indian casino down there. I believe that's Harris Casino. And then over in this direction over here, I believe is the Rincon Casino. There's quite a few of them out here. This is all Indian territory for the most part. But thank God for the clouds, because it's a lot better up here now with the clouds. And I'm just lucky it's not a hot day. Well, I don't know if you can see that in the glare. I'm at 4.6 miles right now at an elevation of 3,187, 88 feet right here. And I've hiked a total of 4.6 miles. So I'm assuming this is the top. I'll mark this for future check. I take a break. Remember how I was talking earlier about the red clay soil? You can definitely see it up here. A lot different than the soils down at the lower elevation. Well, this was not what I expected to be doing some bushwhacking. So we'll see in a little bit. I do have some climbing to get to the secondary peak, and it looks like some bushwhacking. All right, well, you can see the brown trail. That's the peak I was on, not the one with the white rocks, the one in front of it. That's where I just was. I come down the trail, had to do some bushwhacking, had some steep climbing, and now I'm on the secondary summit, which I still don't see any summit markers, but I just got here, so give me a few minutes. I'll scout around, see what I find. And at least the sun has gone behind the clouds, so it's a little cooler up here. Okay, well, just off my little trail here, I found this rock, and lo and behold, there's the benchmark. I have to admit, this is a pretty impressive view of the Palomar Range. Up there somewhere is the observatory. It's on the other side. You can't see some structures up there. And one hell of a set of switchbacks right there. Benchmark is on the rock right there behind me. And to be honest, this doesn't look as high as the one I was just on. But this is the one with the marker, so we'll go with that. And now it looks like I've got about maybe 3.5 miles to get down. I wish there was a place with shade up here I could sit up and maybe have my lunch, but I don't know. I'm tempted just to head back to the car, drive through and get a hamburger somewhere. I don't know. It sounds pretty good. I don't know. We'll see. If I find someplace decent, I might stop. Well, that down there is the Escondido Canal. Brings water from, I don't know where, the mountains, I guess, down into Lake Wolford. And our trail is making a turn to the left here. And we're going to be on the Rodriguez Trail now, back to the Hell Creek Trail. Well, here's a little better view of that Escondido Canal. This is some steep downhill that we're doing right now. And it's taking a toll on my legs, man. I can feel it. And of course, I'm in direct sun now, so it doesn't help. Okay, let's hold it for a minute. So I'm coming down the mountain, slipping and sliding, and almost busting my ass several times when the trail makes a left turn and heads back up the mountain to the south, away from Hell Creek, and back up to Paradise Mountain. Now, not being one to panic, I continue plodding along, now climbing back up that steep hill I just came up an hour ago. I hike along and thought something just doesn't seem right here, so I retraced my steps, hiked back down, then back up to where the trail turned, and I headed back up toward Rodriguez Mountain, or whatever the hell it's called, straight up again. Now I'm not only confused, but tired, hot, and honestly starting to panic. But being an experienced hiker, I stop, look around, and set a waypoint on my GPS. From here, I can see a nicely manicured trail down below, about 200 feet down. There's no real way to get to it, so I did the one thing that I tell everybody not to do. I went for it. Luckily, after plowing through some tick-infested and scratchy brush for 20 minutes, I popped out onto a trail. I made a slight right turn in the direction I wanted to go, and after a few minutes of hiking, I did find this sign. And what a sign it was, a sign of relief. Okay, well, I'm back to, it says staging, so that's where I need to go. So I'm back on trail now. A little more than I bargained for. All right, well, to put this in perspective, today's adventure was quite the tough one. I'm not back yet, but at least I'm on the main road now, heading back to the car. I still got quite a climb out of the creek, but if you look behind me, that's Paradise Mountain and Rodriguez Mountain, and I just climbed them both, and then some. And even though it's cool today, I'm sweating, my face is beet red, probably dehydrated. I'll be back in the car in 20 minutes. I can rehydrate a little better, and I'm definitely stopping on the way home and getting something to eat and getting an ice cold Coke with some ice or something. I don't know. This wasn't a fun hike. Had great views at the top, but to be honest, I don't think it's worth it. Well, it looks like I survived, just barely, because here's the parking lot. Oh my God! Just when you thought you couldn't go any farther. Man, it's like kicking someone when you're down, you know? That last mile was straight uphill, like ridiculously steep. I knew it going down. We were going to have to come back up this way, but that was bad. But I made it. I'm back here at the trailhead, and I survived Hellhole Canyon. But I'm not coming back. When I got home, I pulled out my GPS track and popped it into my mapping software and saw where I took the wrong turn. Evidently, while coming down the Rodriguez Trail, I veered onto the upper portion of the Horse Thief Loop until it started to go back up. If I would have kept going up, it would have eventually hit the Paradise Mountain Trail again, and I could have just taken that trail downhill back to where I started. Instead, I backtracked to where I could see the nicely maintained Canyon View Trail below, and I bushwhacked downhill, then across the contour line until I hit it. Now, I do apologize for going off trail, because I know that's a big no-no in a preserve, rightly so. But their awful signage and confusing names didn't help much. I put the blame on both of us squarely at 50-50. So where the hell is Paradise Mountain? So this is what I figured out so far. The big rocky peak to the south is definitely Rodriguez Mountain. That matches the topographic map in elevation and in name, according to the Rodriguez Mountain 7.5-minute series printed by the U.S. Department of the Interior, the U.S. Geological Survey quadrangle map. Wow, that's quite a mouthful. Anyway, the tallest peak that I reached was at an elevation of 3,188 feet and was unmarked and unnamed on the USGS topographic map, and I'm going to call that one Paradise Mountain. Here's the funny thing. Further research led me nowhere. There's absolutely no information source online anywhere that mentions Paradise Mountain by GPS coordinates or marker. Well, except for one place, Topo Zone. They're the place that makes and sells the custom topographic maps. They actually have coordinates for Paradise Mountain, and get this, it's not even in Hellhole Canyon Preserve. It's at an elevation of 2,329 feet and sits at the dead end of Paradise Mountain Road with a frickin' house on it. It's only 3,627 feet southwest from the hiker parking lot at Hellhole Canyon. Now, how's that for a twist? The U.S. Board on Geographic Names is a federal body created in 1890 and established in its present form by public law in 1947 to maintain uniform geographic name usage throughout the federal government system. They're the ones that come up with the names on the topographic maps. I did a podcast on it way back in episode 61 of Anthony's audio journal. They don't officially recognize Paradise Mountain or Rodriguez Peak. Not the mountain, the peak. So this is what I figured out. Somewhere a while ago, while developing the open space preserve, they noticed that the two most prominent peaks that looked the most tempting to hike to were not named, so they just made some up. Paradise Mountain most likely got its name because the preserve is right off Paradise Mountain Road, the one with the house on it. And your guess is about as good as mine on how they came up with Rodriguez Peak. Maybe it's because it's near Rodriguez Mountain, or maybe one of the original founders of the preserve was named Rodriguez. Who knows? Anyway, I'm calling the tallest peak, the one I climbed first, of the Paradise Mountain Trail, as Paradise Mountain, and the second peak, the one with the RM on it, Rodriguez Peak. Whew, that's about ready to have a coronary. Well, that'll do it for another edition of the journal, my adventure into the Hellhole Canyon Preserve. Be sure and hit the like and subscribe button to keep informed of new editions as I post them. Anyway, be safe, get out there and do some hikes before it gets too hot. Take care. Bye-bye.